Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us at this time. Yeah, so my name is Boon. I'll be taking the first part of the talk for about 35 to 40 minutes, and then we will have a kind of a switchover break where my colleague Liong Choon will continue the second part of the talk for another 40 minutes. We'll try our best to leave some time, maybe about 30 minutes at the end for Q&A. All right. So I know there are some questions regarding access to the slides and as well as to the recording. So we're actually recording to tonight's session, and then the recording and the speaker slides will be shared with the participants who join us tonight. All right. So do look out for the email from us over the next couple of days. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. All right. Okay, let me just take a quick check regarding whether everything is fine. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to cover part one for about 35 to 40 minutes, and then my colleague Liong Choon will take the second part for another 40 minutes. Okay. So a little bit about myself. My name is Lee Boon. Right, I have been with ISS for about 8.5 years now. Right, so basically my focus areas is on consulting and teaching for continuing professional development over at NUS-ISS. So for some of you who are not aware of ISS, it means Institute of System Science. And basically my job is to help customers drive success through the adoption of digital product management best practices, right? So Liong Choon and I, we have been actually conducting product management related courses for the last 7 over years, right? So for myself, I started my career basically in the IT world, right? So I graduated from NUS Computer Science back in 1989, right? So my first job was with NEC. Started as a software developer for about 5 years. Then went on to join companies like HP, EDS, Sun Microsystems. And my last job was with Accenture for about 6 years as a senior manager before I joined ISS. Okay, so over at ISS, apart from teaching the professionals in the area of product management, I also do take the postgraduate students in digital product management as well, right? So this is particularly for the graduate program pertaining to system analysis, which is actually a postgraduate diploma. Okay. There will be a Q&A at the end, so we would appreciate if you can type in the Q&A into the Zoom Q&A, all right, if you have any questions. So we'll try to address them towards the end, all right, so that we can actually allow you all to at least go through the slides. Of course, in between, we try to address as much as possible. Okay, now what I plan to do is to cover in part one, basically some concepts around what are digital products, right, and platforms. Basically, this being a workshop on product management. Particularly, most of you are developers. Maybe some of you are already product managers in some form or another. So what would be the role of a product manager in the digital world, for example? So I'll cover some of the challenges. We would probably touch base on a little bit of some of the product strategy and execution at a high level due to time constraint. And then maybe focus a little bit about the execution part of it. And then subsequent to that, I'll pass the time later to my colleague Liong Choon. He will cover a little bit more on the lean way of doing things, right? Today we talk about time to market is important, and we also want to make sure we are able to deliver fast and basically look at engaging customer continuously. So you'll touch on some concepts around the lean way of doing things. All right. In particularly, we're talking about a lot of focus on agile. How do you apply some of these agile concepts into the day-to-day product development world? Okay, so I actually put a slide here to give a little bit of definition so that we are on the same page as a start, right? So we're going to cover what essentially is the definition of a digital product versus, for example, also a digital platform, right? So if you see on the left side of the screen, I kind of a quick short definition around digital products, and I kind of put four types of products in the definition, right? So if you look at it, the definition here I put simply is basically a digital product is a technology-enabled product or service that offers utility, value, or benefit. Okay, so if you look at the diagram here, the first one, most of us are familiar with the DBS DigiBank, right? So over here, what I'm looking at from a digital product standpoint is a lot of brick and mortar companies like banks, for example, they kind of undergone quite a lot of digital transformation, right? Particularly for DBS, they have started the journey about 2 to 3 years back, right, to transform themselves, right? So basically, we are looking at brick and mortar, basically transforming to embrace the digital technology and to leverage the technology to serve customer, right? So if you look at it here, for example, DBS, they started the digital bank in India, and then subsequently over the years we see in Singapore is adopting quite a lot of these digibank online for locals, right? So previously we know for most of us we have account, we are very familiar with iBanking. Now, how DBS position is more than just a tool to access online, for your account balances or for transferring money or for paying bills, right? So what they are looking at is a platform to allow customer to be able to create new accounts, right? And to be able to sign up for credit cards instantly, right? Pretty much manage a lot of their finances online. And recently, they actually added the element of predictive technology to the mobile app, right? So that is only about maybe 2 months ago, back in September when they announced this, right? So basically what they are saying is they are trying now to proactively offer some kind of suggestions to customer on how to effectively manage their money. And also maybe some of the investment like cut losses on investments and so on, right? So that's one particular area, right? Now, second is if you look at the next one is very famous Disney, right? Disney World, right? So they have these magic bands, right? So basically what they are doing is companies like them, they may not be in the digital space. They are now more in entertainment, theme parks and so on. But they are actually leveraging on digital technology to engage customer, right? Through a lot of digital channels and kind of leveraging some of the branding behind their offering. Right. So this magic bands was an adoption. I think was cost them about $1 billion. Basically, looking at their storefront, right, in terms of some of the theme parks, some of the restaurant, resort businesses. How do they bring the whole experience through these different channels, right? So basically it's like a wristband. They actually kind of make it to be the like central nervous system of this experience. They call it the My Magic experience, right? Right. So what happened is that for this wearable, they embed it with some RFID technology, right? So that customer coming in can use it to kind of access information, right? For theme parks, for example, right? They can book fast passes, they can make hotel reservations, make cashless payment, and as well even open the doors to the Disney hotel rooms, right? So for Disney, basically it's very simple, right? So they are trying to enhance the experience, right, for their customers, right? So the more people they spend more time at their theme parks, right? ultimately means more revenue for Disneyland. Right. So so there's the second category, really leveraging technologies to promote the product and services, looking at the customer experience. Right. The third category will be looking at integrating digital technologies into the products and services to enhance the experience of using or operating the products. Right. Today you talk about things like the connected car, right? The connected vehicles, right? Even smart refrigerator. The idea here is that you want to be able to connect using IoT to connect to the internet, so that, for example, the smart fridge we are talking about, they actually do not just preserve food. They are able to provide information of value-added services in terms of, for example, menus for some of the meals that maybe the consumer wants to be able to leverage by just touch screen on the refrigerator. So the idea here is to kind of build some of these smart technologies into traditional products. Okay, and then finally, the last category is basically all the ebooks, so videos, ebooks, music, albums, and so on. Okay, all right. So I think there are some questions, like I say, we'll try to address along the way, right? So one of the questions here is any software to use to prototype a product. So I think basically when we talk about technology and enable, essentially is to use software. So the idea, as I mentioned, is to really look at how do we actually create products using iterative approach, right? So things like prototyping, minimum viable product are some approaches. So that will be covered later. Okay, so some comments a bit draggy on slide 1. Okay, so let's also come back. So quickly, okay, the other part I want to synchronize is basically what do you mean by digital platform, right? So again, here I put in some diagrams, some simple definition. So a digital platform basically creating a community for exchanges of products, services between what you call producers and consumers, right? And essentially is to create value in that community to exchange their products and services, right? So some examples here I put in again some high-level description on four types. So basically, I think the idea here is software today's context is no longer the central thing. In a way, it's become like a commodity, right? So it's not important just to create an app. You need to create network. So platform usually talks about how we talk about network effect, right? Marketplace, right? So basically, the key is creating the network in the business model. That's where the real value is, right? So so one category could be very simple, a social media platform, right? Like here, Twitter and Instagram, right? Another one could be service oriented, right? You have Grab, Airbnb. And then you have media platform like Spotify, YouTube. And finally, another one is knowledge sharing learning platform like Stack Overflow and Quora. Okay. So let me quickly move on. So again, some definition, right? We talk about the digital world today. We're talking about products that are digitized, and then businesses are so-called trying to embrace the digital world, right? Retransform themselves. So they are undergoing what we call a digitalization in terms of digital transformation. So what do we mean exactly, right? So essentially, one key concept is a lot of businesses are now leveraging digital technologies to open up new digital channels, right? So that's what you mean by digitizing business, right? So it's actually using digital technology to change a business model to provide new revenue and more value producing opportunities, right? So in some of the earlier examples of DBS Bank, Disney, is actually using this, right? So I also put in some description here. Some product and services is a matter of putting smart technology, right? So it could be very simple 3-step, right? You insert smart text onto your product, then customer, basically use their smartphone, tap on the product, and then basically then you deliver a digital experience to that customer, relating to that, of course, to the product in question, right? So one example here is using near field communications text, right? So I heard about how some shoes in the US, when you buy, right? So a lot of customer wants to buy the real thing, but how do they know whether it's the real branded shoe that they wanted versus a fake one, right? So what the vendor has done is to embed some of these smart text into their product, right? So basically, when it's shipped to the consumer can use the phone to tap in, to kind of test and validate the authenticity of the product itself, right? So these are ways to leverage technology. Okay, next is I put in this slide to talk about today's world. A lot of businesses are facing the digital threat, right? We heard about digital technology actually disrupting a lot of industry, changing the way we kind of live and interact with the people around us in the world, right? So you find that many companies are scrambling, to implement these digital technologies to kind of look at reaping some of the benefits, right? So it means rethinking the business model, right? So there will be challenges, right? But to me, I think when you remove all the hype about digital transformation, actually the goal is really not new technology, but actually is talking about transforming the customer experience using new technology in product and services, right? So in other words, I see digital technology as a tool, right, to create great customer experience, right? And after you have done that, you need to also continually kind of improve the experience, right? So actually the best way to kind of take on any so-called transformation is to take a holistic approach that looks at the every aspect of a customer journey in terms of interaction with your product and services. And that's where I think product management is in a unique position to kind of make it a reality, right, in the digital world today, right? So a lot of companies needs to really transform themselves, right? So there are actually a lot of competition, right? Right, the modern customer today will not just buy product without checking online, for example, for price comparisons, for reviews, to check with their friends, for example, through social media, right? So that they feel that there's a connection, and also the assurance before they buy. All right, and then we see today, all right, a lot of consumers become more aware, right, and more demanding. So, but it also open up a lot of opportunities for companies to serve many new ways, right, to kind of build that rapport with customer, right? So when you talk about customer experience, we will talk about giving more choices to customer, giving more control to the customer, more convenience, right? Personalization, more transparency, right? And also areas like security, privacy, that's come in as well, right? So, and the reason is because technology has matured, so it resulted in more ways for for companies to leverage some of this technology, right? So there are evolving business model, right? So more and more today we see you need to kind of look at cross-border, cross-industry. There will be more competition. So these are the real threats that we see today, right? And you find that what I believe is that companies that can really survive and thrive are those that leverage on product management to drive that transformation, right? To really look at the different new digital channels to kind of build around customer engagement, right? In short, I'm trying to say that the product manager job basically now is to really look at upgrading the experience rather than just on the product itself. Think of the end user experience. It's more important. Next, we have a bit of what I see a trifecta, right? We talk about product management, right? Traditionally, a product manager focus on building the product and then after they launch it, right? And then of course look at trying to improve sales over time and usability, right? But today's world, the digital product manager really sits in the intersection between this trifecta, right? First, looking at leveraging technology, right, to create a feasible product, right? So you need to be able to kind of have the capability in the first place to leverage technology, right? To be able to create this product, right? Then next is you focus on the customer, right? You probably want to test it out with the customer to see does it serve the purpose in meeting the customer pain point, right? So that's the desirability. A customer will only buy your product if the product serves its purpose in meeting their need, right? Before actually then, based on that, you are able to create a viable business product or business model for your product. Basically, essentially, it's really building a business model that is sustainable, right? It cannot be making a loss, right? So company can only survive if they are able to make a profit, right? So essentially, what I see is really the intersection, right, of these three areas that forms what is critical today, the digital product management factor itself, right? So if your product idea that you have is able to meet all three criteria, using technology, create a feasible product, looking at customer pain point to be able to meet the desire and the pain point, right? And then essentially to be able to drive a profitable business model, right? Then you will have a successful product. I also see a lot of organizations are moving away from a project-driven mindset to a product-centric model, right? From large projects to small iterative releases, right? So if you look at developing a particular solution or a product or service from a project-driven angle, most of the time it tends to be very waterfall driven, right? You try to understand all the requirements, then you take a lot of time trying to design the perfect solution before you test it out and roll it out. So it's very waterfall. One leads to another, and the thing about it takes very long, and it tends to be very inflexible, right? So one of the problems with that is doesn't have a direct line to the customer, line of sight to the customer, right? And also kind of looking at the outside-in orientation of digital businesses. So by contrast, you see that a lot of organizations are embracing the right side, right? Looking at from an angle of combining user experience with digital experience, combining development and operations into DevOps, right? So you have cross-functional team now with very small, iterative, fast to market, and basically learning and improving your product over time, right? So the idea here is to emphasize now on continual focus on delivery, innovation, and optimization, right? So that's why I see it's important and embrace that kind of mentality when you are developing product and services for your customer, right? More and more now, the focus is companies are embracing on product and portfolio management approach, right? So looking at core small teams that are continually are the same people who becomes expert in in the product development, and they know their customer well, right? So basically focusing on really funding such initiative, right, to build that so-called viable business model for their company, right? So this diagram, I took it from this UX Planet website. You can actually check it out. They have quite a lot of stuff that you can read out and get some insights. All right, so basically from the same website, I kind of look at this picture. It's quite nice. I thought we would share with you, right? Moving away from product means you're looking at effectiveness, right? Really, I mentioned already, a lot of time project driven, you try to understand all the requirements, right? So the problem is sometimes we don't have the luxury to be able to understand all the requirements, right? So we can't assume value upfront, right? When we know least the less. So rather when we know the least, right? So you're always at risk at the very beginning of a journey of development, because that's where you have very little information, right? So it's better to have a product driven where you continuously validate their assumptions. So in other words, you build quickly, test, get the feedback, to validate some of your hypotheses and assumption, and then continue to improve, right? And then efficiency looks at really building what I call T-shaped expertise in your team, right? Rather than say that you have different people with specialized skills, then you tell them these are your individual functional goals. Here you are looking at T-shape to form a cross-functional team, where you're looking at team as a whole to deliver a product. That will be the measurement and the goal, right? And finally, the sustainability, right? So sustainability, again, here, don't look at predefined outputs, but really empowering teams, right, to solve problems. So that's very important. Okay. This slide, I kind of put together a simple product lifecycle that is typically being used, right? Was created back in the 60s and very popular in the 70s to the 90s by a lot of companies to do marketing, right? So when you actually develop a product, it goes through kind of a life cycle, the S curve, right? So there's time to introduce to the market. You don't have a lot of sales. The idea here is you want to be able to focus on product advocacy, right? Be a champion for the product, to create awareness and demand and differentiation, to fight against your competition. So that's where you try to move it to the growth stage, right? And then once you're able to kind of capture the market, right? Then it's important to then retain your customer through that maturity stage, right? But because products over time, you get competition, right? So there's a kind of the decline, right? So you need to think about how to extend that life, right? So I actually added some elements here with regard to the role of a product manager, right? At the very beginning, right, the idea here is you're trying to find a solution, right, to meet a pain point, right? So key thing is a problem solution fit. All right, so you try to identify so-called a gap in the market. Is there a gap in the market, right? So you need to think about whether you're able to solve a problem, right? Then after that, you introduce the product to the market. Then essentially you're trying to see whether there is a product market fit, right? So the concept of pushing out something quickly is to fight competition and to be able to also kind of get feedback to kind of pivot if you're wrong, change direction quickly, right? So that you can mold and shape the direction of the product, right, towards what we call a product market fit, right? And that has to do with really, you have found out there's a gap. Then the next thing is whether is there a market in that gap? Meaning, are there people who and actually will buy your product, So that is the second stage, right? To be able to make sure that you're able to listen feedback for the customer, validate with customer, continuously engage customer to ensure that you are on the right track. And then, of course, the next step is what we call is to scale your product, right? So here you have to look at then your delivery channel, right? So you look at your product channel feed, look at the various digital channels. How can you maximize, amplify, right, the adoption and so on. And eventually, if you look at over time, right, your product may need to go back, right, iterate back to a problem solution fit stage, right? Because before you decline, can you then now look at the problem statement again? Whether do you need to pivot again to relook at addressing, are there further gaps either in the market itself or adjacent market? So I see it as an iterative approach now in today's context from a digital perspective. Okay, let's take a pause here. There are some questions. What is the difference between viable and feasible? So basically, when we talk about viability, it has to do with the business model, right? I mentioned about creating a business model that is sustainable, right? A company can only survive if it makes profit, right? So in other words, it must be able to generate, right? The scaling part, right? When I talk about being able to achieve product market fit and scale a product is essentially we're talking about actually adoption, right? How do you convince customers to buy from you? Whereas feasibility has to do with really leveraging technology, right? It has to be feasible in saying can be implemented using technology and your capability of your team. Okay. There's also a question: do we need a WBS, which is in this case indicated as web breakdown structure, or is it work breakdown structure, commonly known in Agile, and how to cast project timeline in Agile? Now, we are limited in time, so I may not be able to explain the full concept. So in the next few slides, I will cover some aspect of the Agile, and hopefully we'll address some of these. Okay. Okay, what is the goal of the company during the product growth stage? Okay, so the product growth stage essentially is over here we are looking at trying to fight off your competition, right? So the idea here is ultimately you are trying to scale, right? So that's hopefully we'll be able to address that. Okay. Another question: there are times when MVP created, they are mostly half-baked solution. Long run may not work. Is there any advice you would go, right? Okay, so it's always a question, right? You create a product and you're not sure. When you say half-baked, right, it means that probably you do not have a lot of adoption. So you actually are now have to weigh, right? So it's important then to set some targets, right? If you do not meet the targets, then what will be the action needed? If you don't do that, you find that you will be forever be chasing number, right? Is 10 people adoption good, or we are looking at 10,000 people, or we are looking at 10 million people adopting, right? And the product manager struggle is there, right? All right. So my advice is in the MVP, you should try to iterate, right? So you may want to consider going through beta testing, right? Getting beta users to get feedback before you actually officially launch. You don't want to launch a half-baked product where it's an instant flop, right? So there are some measures definitely, right? Okay, let me just move on. Okay, conscious of time, we'll try to list down the question for Q&A later. The next slide I have another maybe 3 to 4 slides more. All right, so the next slide basically kind of a high level covers what I call the digital product management stages, right? So if you're looking at a bright idea at the beginning, right? So basically it's under product opportunity. So basically a product manager needs to drive the idea. And their idea is cannot be just based on solutioning, but rather based on market problem and opportunities, right? So you need to consider whether there's a so-called gap in the market, right? And essentially, from a business standpoint, right, for the company, you need to build a strong business case before you can convince management that this is a good opportunity, right? So to build a good business case, you got to study, what are the competition out there, right? Um, sorry, yeah. So over here we have market segmentation, which essentially is looking at in the market itself, what kind of segmentation target that you want to look at as well, right? So moving on, then the second stage is looking at product strategy, right? So you need to consider things like how you're going to position your product in the mind of your user, right? So you consider things like, okay, you might have more than one product in your product line. How do you allocate resources? Which are the products need more resources than others? How do you prioritize the allocation of resources? What kind of pricing, right? We talk about today context customers. How do you entice them with freemium so that they start using for free, but if they want better features, they have to pay for it, right? Then finally, more important is go-to-market, right? The go-to-market strategy basically is looking at come up with a market plan to address the target segment market, and then how you can position, right, the product, the pricing, and so on. Then moving on, you need to consider planning and developing the product is the next two stage, right? So you must understand the pain point to get the market requirements. Then how do you kind of look at a roadmap to evolve your product? Because time to market is important. You can't possibly take 2 years, 3 years to develop a complete perfect product and try to launch it after 2 or 3 years. It's too late. Then how do you consider to evolve the product over a timeline of 2-3 years? So you got to consider version 1, version 2, version 3. What makes sense to go into version 1, and what makes sense to go into 2, and so on. So that has to do with really product road mapping, essentially understanding how to manage requirements and to be able to release them in different releases over time. And then from a product development, you're using typical product development process today embraces agile way of doing things, embraces customer experience design, right? Some of you attended yesterday my colleague Sean's talk, right, on the user experience, where I cover some of the techniques with regard to understanding the pain point, right? How do you validate customer? The product that you have has to get customer to validate. So product validation is very important, right? And then, as I say, you need to evolve your product. So the idea here is you need to be able to iterate your product and continuously improve. So with the completion of first version, you got to consider how to launch, right? So that's the last step, right? You got to consider getting your Marcom teams in place, your sales team in place, right? And your support team as well, right? So there's a lot of planning for your launch, right? And more importantly is look at measurable targets, right, for the launch, right? So as I mentioned earlier, what kind of numbers are you looking at, right, for the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and so on. Okay, so this one just give you a quick run through on the different stages from a end-to-end product management process. So I kind of put together this slide on digital product strategy and execution, right? So the idea here is to build a business case. It's very important. You need to ask question, why are you building this product? Is it worth spending the money, investing in the resources and the time? Then go to market strategy. Why are we launching this product? Who is the product for, right? So a lot of techniques you have probably heard about yesterday, using personas, right? To be able to identify the behavior of the users, the goals, the pain point, right? And more importantly, the go-to strategy is how do we actually do campaigning, right? How do you engage customer? How do you convince them to buy, right? And then third one is important to be able to have a good product roadmap, right? That kind of drive your release, right? In a very structured way. That has to be driven by the vision, right? The North Star that guides your product delivery. What kind of direction you want to set for your product and how you evolve it over time with regard to, for example, competition out there, for example, and also leveraging between technology and the market pool, right? There's a balancing you need to do, right? And then essentially in the execution part, really a lot of companies are doing agile because of the time to market rather than the traditional waterfall, right? So the idea here is you need to do prioritization using a product backlog, right? So how do you prioritize? On what basis? These requirements from this customer is more important than another. So these are some considerations you need to think about. Right. So the idea of agile delivery is that you do iteration, right? Right. So the idea here is you kind of compress your time frame, right? In a typical waterfall, you compress it into 1 to 4 weeks to develop something quickly, get feedback, right? So maybe the first couple of iterations you can rope in beta users to get inputs and so on until you're comfortable. Maybe after iteration X, then you release, and then after you look at the planning for the next release using the same approach. All right. And this last slide basically talk about continuous digital product delivery, right? So on the one hand, basically the idea here is we want to look at, sorry, let me just dismiss my alarm. So I'll probably try to wrap down in another couple of minutes. The first part, all right, so has to do with really continuously evolve your product through what I call 3 key legs that you need to balance your product on. Understanding customer voice, right? To be able to understand the pain point. Second is how do you validate, like I mentioned about using beta users. That's only one approach. There are many approaches out there, right? Using MVP, right? Looking at field tests, right? A/B testing. My colleague will be covering some of this technique later. And then finally, the third leg is really continuously engage customer to get feedback, right? How do you know customer are adopting which part of your feature of your product, which are more important than the others? So this feedback loop is always continuous. And then it goes into the right-hand side for your team for the development, right? Nowadays, more and more people are focusing on DevOps, right? So the idea of having a continuous integration environment is very important to allow your people to be able to make use of version control like Git and GitHub, right? To be able to have system build, right? Nowadays, products comes with a lot of such tools that help enable the team, right, to do continuous integration. So continuous integration covers CUT, coding unit test, plus system integration test, SIT, right? Then after that, moving into the deployment test environment, right? So there's a little bit of test environment in between, right? Staging, if you want to call it a staging environment, where you actually get key stakeholders to do acceptance tests before you actually deploy out to the end user in the deployment. Right. So in summary, basically, I just have 3 points, right? So key thing is demonstrate early success, right? So the idea here is you want to be able to have early success to kind of test out, right? You explore and test, get feedback, right? And deliver visible results, value to your stakeholders regularly, right? So a lot of companies are using experimentation, lean, and so on, right? And be able to get learnings to kind of apply some of the insights back to evolve your product. Okay, so looking at time is 7:50 now, overshot by about 5 minutes. So at this time, I will just stop share and maybe I'll hand the time to my colleague, Choon. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to continue with part two, but let me just start the sharing of the screen first. Okay, so I'm going to cover the second part of this session. And the focus of this second part, before I go to that, maybe I will just give a very quick introduction in the interest of time. I'll keep it very short. I'm with ISS as with Boon in the same practice called the digital product and platform practice. And I've been with ISS for like almost 12, 13 years. Okay, so we start off with project management, and then we have recently, because of the digital transformation and basically so-called pivot and what I call expand into the area of digital product management. Yeah. And most of the courses I teach are actually also at what Buki mentioned. We may cover also the diploma postgraduate courses as well as a product management suite of courses. It doesn't just end at product management, but it covers also like product strategy, product thinking, product market fit, right? Architecting product platform, things like that. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Okay, the second part objective mainly will be to highlight and explain some of the approach to managing your idea, your ideation, right? Even as a startup, or even when you have a new idea or new feature you want to actually implement, right? It doesn't mean that you can do it in a cowboy sense, right? You need to have a structure to manage it as well. Yeah. So we're going to cover things like what is the 360 view of a product, 5 questions that we commonly hear founders ask, and what would this new product innovation process. We're going to focus on this method called a lean startup. Lean startup is a method that is made famous by Eric Ries, a serial entrepreneur and venture capitalist. Yeah. Okay, let's start with the 360 view of a product. So very often, some of the questions that we commonly hear from our what I call a teaching experience, right, and training experience, is that people will keep asking us, what's the difference between project and product? Yeah. So for those who are very well trained, right, in project management, you may probably be certified in PMP and other certification. You may be very familiar with the triple constraint. Yeah. In project, we talk about scope, time, and cost, right? As long as you deliver the deliverable within that scope, within a certain budget baseline, and within a certain schedule baseline, you're good, right? But in product, it's a different thing. Huh? You have to think of it as a 360 view of the customer mental model, right? What it means here is that when you talk about product, you start to put yourself in the shoe of a customer who actually have to actually use the product and live with the product, right? So he'll be asking questions like, does this product meet industry standard, right? Or in the digital world, we talk about, is the product able to what I call operate in multiple devices, right? Now we have smartphone, tablets, things like that, right? Are they able to operate across devices, right? Are they able to operate across different browsers, for example, right? So it meet various what I call web standards and device standards, yeah. And who will install it, right? How is it going to be installed, right? How would the update be done, right? Would it be automatically, right? Can I trust the product, right? Again, this is something that, especially with what I call a constant threat of cybersecurity, this is something that everyone who uses a digital product would expect some kind of assurance, right? And if I have a problem, who do I call, right? Again, this applies to physical product as well as digital product as well, right? Will they even pick up the phone? I'm sure you have encountered a lot of issues with call centers, right? So if you have a problem, how do you get help, right? And so forth, right? So this is what we call the augmented product, right? So this is basically what is the key difference between a product and a project. Okay, a product has a life from cradle to grave. You have to see through the whole product, right? And the way how the product is evolving, right? You have to also look at how it evolved the product to ensure it sustained throughout the whole life cycle. And at one point where you need to so-called retire it, you have to consider whether you can possibly extend it further, right, beyond the current lifespan, and or you want to pivot to a what I call another product, right? Okay, so 5 questions that most commonly asked by founders. So we look at people who are in a startup, right, or in a startup what I call domain. You can see that from this survey, right, the top most questions, right, is who are my customer? Now, when we talk about a project, right, you talk about cost, schedule, and scope. Customer doesn't appear there, right? But for product, right, for product management, constantly the product manager have to be asking himself, right, who are my customer? That is the topmost question, important question. Second in the list, right, is there a need in the market for the product? As Boon have emphasized earlier on, right? It doesn't mean that you have a gap in the market, you can build that product, right? Somebody asked in the Q&A as well, right? What's the difference between viable and feasible? Now, feasible means that you actually can build that product, but doesn't mean should you build it, right? The next question is, should you build it? And then you have to consider the viability, right? Whether will it make money? Would your customer, will we have enough customer to be able to support, right, the adoption, right, to be able to recover the cost of building that product or delivering that product? Yeah. Also, that is the market need, the market need of a product. And the third in line, right, in the survey is the product usable, right? That's where yesterday when our colleague Sean talked a lot on the usability, right, the UX aspect of it, right? In the past, you talk about a product as something that you want to launch, that's it. But today you talk about UX, user experience. You need to see the total experience of the user or the customer that is using that product, what we call earlier on the 360 view, right? How he install his product, how do you support him when you have a problem, how do you assure him on the trust factor, right, or security or things like that. Yeah. So that's the usability. And the next 3 in line will be basically make up the top 5, right? But you can see the common thread across these 5 questions, right? The most common question that the founders ask, the key thing is customer, right? That's the common thread. So in short, do people want the product? You have to be able to address this question, right, as a product manager. So customer value is the key, right? And as you can see from these 3 well-known example, in today's world, they are still surviving in a very what I call uncertain world. They are still making a lot of impact, right? If you have been keeping up in the news, right? Airbnb is recently announced they're going to launch an IPO, and surprisingly, right, their IPO price as it was adjusted upwards. The estimated price was adjusted upwards, even though there's a COVID. Okay, they adjusted upwards. Yeah, so basically all this product is very successful because why? Because they address a specific customer need, right? A gap, a customer gap or customer pain point, right? Yeah, so I'm going to just maybe talk about might share with you maybe a little anecdote of my experience. I happen to be lucky enough, right, to travel in 2018, and today, of course, now you're locked down, so I was quite lucky in 2018. After 2019, some people near the end still can travel, but this year is quite bad, right? So when why is Airbnb so popular? Why is Airbnb such a success, right? So what happened is that, if you ever want to travel, right, in the past, especially in summer, right? I was traveling to Europe to visit a country called Slovenia, right? And you realize that in summer, right, you hardly can find hotels, right? Usually they are fully booked. Not only that, the prices goes right up, right? They have a summer price that is very, very expensive. And worse is that you may not even have money to pay, right? You may not be able to find, right, a hotel that is near to the place you want to go. So in Airbnb, basically they address high availability, first thing, wide choices of options, and most important, the differentiating factor of having a unique experience. So in my what I call experience in 2018 when I was traveling to Slovenia, I was trying to visit a place called Lake Bled, right? If you look at Lake Bled, it's actually a little island, this is a big lake, right? And there's a little island there in the middle of the lake. And just imagine, right, the place that this Lake Bled is situated, right, is actually very remote, very rural. You can't find city infrastructure there, right? Let alone the hotel, right? So how do I get to this place to have a place near that place? I use Airbnb, okay? And it has, through Airbnb, I managed to find a location, right? A place where I can go to Lake Bled and stay within 5 minutes walk from the place. Just imagine a 5 minutes walk. And the location or the place of stay, right, is actually a house. It was owned by a tourist agent for the Slovenia, what I call a tourist agent authority, right? So she rent out her place during summer, right? So just imagine it satisfied everything I was having problem with, right? Availability, location, near to the place I want to go, and also the unique experience. I stay in a place like a house, those cookie cutter hotel rooms, like 1 bed, 2 bedroom, that kind of thing, right? Or 2 bed queen size or king size bed, that kind of thing. So you have a unique experience of staying in a place that you are actually traveling in. Yeah. So that's the main key, what I call things that every product manager must always focus on, the customer. Okay. Next, we're going to just jump into this process called the innovation process, product innovation process. Now, even when you have a product idea, doesn't mean you don't and those that's what I call go through a very messy process. There's actually a way to manage it, a process of managing your idea from ideation to validating your idea to launching, right? So we call this the lean startup method. This, as I say, method was actually made popular, was actually what I call invented by this entrepreneur called Eric Ries. Eric Ries is actually, he wrote the book called The Lean Startup as well. Okay? So he was actually an entrepreneur, a founder of a company called IMVU. It's actually an entertainment company that provides so-called web users, right, to be able to connect with each other through a 3D avatar, and connect with each other, right? So he's actually a very popular and successful entrepreneur. And while he's through his experience, he realized that from his experience, how to manage startup, right? What could be a process that we can help to actually organize ourselves better to enable our product idea to be able to be validated fast and be able to actually get on the right path, right? So this is where the lean startup method comes in. At the core of it is this concept called build, measure, learn. So what he says is that if you have an idea, right, instead of overthinking, right, whether the idea will work or not, thinking of so many things, right, focus on building it, right? Get it built first, and then throw it out into the real world and have a feedback, right? A fast feedback loop to get feedback of whether this idea works or not or don't work, right? You can never know until you test it out with your customer. And then from there, you learn, right? From the feedback from your customer, whether you're on the right path, how should you tweak it? Or could you even, do you have to even maybe consider the experiment a failure and move on to another product altogether, right? Or what we call pivot, right? Should you persevere with the idea or should you pivot to a new idea or new different product altogether? Yeah. Okay, let's go into what I call maybe explain a bit the need for a lean startup. And in today's world, right, unlike tradition, before the internet era, in fact, before the social media era, right, a lot of company are still engaged in the what we call a waterfall model approach, right, to developing product or especially software product. Yeah. So traditionally, you just need to have a proper plan, right? You go through the whole thinking process, the planning process of planning the whole product, the whole scope, the total scope, and what we call a WBS, a work breakdown structure. Or in PMI's project management framework, the work breakdown structure forms the scope baseline, right? The total scope. And then you come up with a strategy to deliver that scope, right? And through the, what I call market research. But in today, if you talk about a startup or a new idea, right? Even for very established brand or company, right? They have to move very fast. Speed is now a feature, right? Not only speed to market, even speed in terms of responding to change, because your customer is constantly shifting, right? Just like you yesterday talked about a lot of UX stuff, right? Your customer is always expectation always changing, and they are always moving from product to product and looking at other things, right? So you need to engage and what you call sustain, right, your product base, right, customer base. You need to constantly evolve your product, adding new feature, giving more value to your customer for various form, right, whether it's bundling or whatever, right? So this is where the startup approach has to, what I call, can address some of these, what I call extreme uncertainty, right? And having to constantly think of innovative ways to create value for your customer through adding new feature and value add, what I call services. Yeah. And what is more even challenging, right, is sometimes you don't even know who your customer is. So this whereby, in Eric Ray's terms, right, they say, why for how you even you don't even know what are the quality that your customer is looking for, because you haven't seen them use your product yet. Do they look for usability? Do you look for what you call reliability? Do you look for speed? Do they look for what, right? So basically what it concludes that a startup also need to be managed and actually can be managed. That's where this lean startup method comes in. Yeah. So I want to focus on the key concept of this lean startup, which is actually tied together these two what we call concept called validated learning and build, measure, learn. Yeah, so it's closely linked, right? The idea of build, measure, learn is to facilitate validated learning. Yeah? When they say validated, meaning validated learning, what Eric Ray means is that you put the product out to the real user, right? And then observe how they use it, and then get feedback from the way they use it, and then what should be the next feature you should look for, right? Or should actually innovate on. Yeah. So the key question, of course, is do people want the product or feature? But then the question then is next is how do we find out, right? I like this very phrase I like this phrase a lot. Basically, is that to empathize with customer unmet needs, managers must observe them in the wild, not in the zoo. Now the key is then what's the difference between animal in the wild and animal in the zoo, right? Yeah. Oh, anyone can what you call shout out? Want to guess? What's the key difference in the context of product management? I would say, what's the difference between animal in the wild and animal in the zoo? Anyone wish to shout out?
Hello, can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
I guess animals in the zoo are the ones that are getting interviewed because they know they're getting interviewed, and animals in the wild is like customers using the application in its daily life, so
Ah,
in his
I
normal
think you are
environment.
quite close to it. Quite close to it. Very often people tell me, "Oh, animal in the zoo is in a cage, controlled environment, that kind of thing." Okay, huh? And also like the what you call uh, um, uh, don't have the freedom, right? Like in the wild, right? Huh? What in the context of product management, I'm trying to use this to illustrate the point here, right? Is how to find out what do you find out, how to find out what people want, right? Whether your product feature is something that people really want. So the key things I'm looking for, right? You're very close to it, right? Is basically food, the word food, right? Huh? If you look at animal in the zoo, right? What happens is that they are fed. They are fed by zookeepers at regular interval. They don't have to worry about food, right? So when you see, observe them, right, their behavior is very different, right, from animal in the wild. They are always walking, sleeping, lazing around. You never see them rolling, right? You never hear them making sound, right? Yeah. But is this the real way animal behave in the wild? No, right? In the wild, animal don't have food, right? Being fed, right? Being fed to them, right? In fact, they have to chase after food, right? Because when they see food, right, the food will actually run. And not only that, that while their food run, right, they also be running as well because there are other animals who will be looking for them as food, right? So they are constantly running in the wild, right? So the point is that if you're building a product or a feature based on what you observe of animal in the zoo, right? Example, in your lab, in your design lab, or in your little offices, right? Or little what I call a cubicle, right? You're not going to get the right feedback, the right answer, right? You need to go out to the wild and observe them in the wild and design your system based on the behavior of the animal in the wild. Okay, huh? In case you all been wondering why these two pictures, right? Actually, there are two animals hidden there. Huh? They are camouflage. Huh? The first one, you have a little frog here. Then the second one, of course, is easier to spot. It's actually a little leaf insect here, right? Huh? Okay, so the point is basically in order for you to find out, right, and observe the animal in the wild, right, you need to conduct experiment, right? So the purpose and objective of conducting the experiment, right, is basically what we call learn fast and also fail fast, right? It's not that you want to fail, but if you have to adjust, right, you want to be able to know it fast, right? Rather than investing a lot of money and time and effort and resources into something that doesn't work. Yeah, so that's where the idea of fail fast and learn fast is in product management, right? On validation, our idea, things like product features. Okay, so key question of the experiment would be able to help you answer would be, do people need this product? Or maybe you're implementing a certain feature, right? In extending your as an extension to your product, right? Or do people need this feature? Do they want this feature? Will they use it? That means would they be willing to move away from their existing what I call a solution or alternative, right? And move to your product or your feature, right? Do they value the solution? That means are they willing to pay for it? This is where the viability comes in, right? It's viable, it's a viable opportunity. It's a viable market there, right? A market in the gap. Am I targeting the right customer, right? So you can from there you can tell, right, whether have you what I call a target or segmented your customer, right, the right way, right, and promote to the right market, right? So I'm going to what I call highlight this key point, right, in product management. As a product manager, it's not whether you can build that product, it's whether you will build that product. Yeah. Remember, building a product involves a lot of time, effort, and resources, right? Financial as well. Yeah. So why are the validating question important? Of course, there is a lot of issues with waste, right? If you will build the wrong product or come up with the wrong feature, right? You'll be wasting investor money. For those people in the startup world where you have angel investors, right? You will be burning your money, right? Your investors' money. There'll be a risk of damage to your reputation, right? If you come up with a product that doesn't work well, right? There's going to be a failure in meeting customer needs, right? Even if you're already a reputable company, right? You will have risk of wastage of a lot of resources, right? Engineering resources is very expensive, right? As a product manager, it's your duty to make sure that your engineering resources is well, what I call optimized, right? In doing the right thing and building the right product. And also, of course, knowing when to persevere or when to pivot. If you're knowing that this product is going into the wrong track or this feature is actually not working well, you should be as early as possible decide whether to pivot and change direction or change path, right? Okay, what are the type of experiment then, right? So I'm going to just, there are many experiments you can use, right? But I'm going to just highlight 4 of the common one we see in the digital product world, okay? The first one is very well known. It's called a Wizard of Oz experiment. Then we have the concept MVP, A/B testing, or sometimes we call speed testing or optimization, simulation, and there are many others as well. Okay, let me just what I call a proceed. Okay, so do people want the product? So this is what we call a Wizard of Oz experiment. So one of the most famous example, right, is this company called Zappos, right? Basically, what this experiment does is that you try to make a website look like a real product, but actually it's actually fake, right? So sometimes it's called fake door experiment as well. The website looks exactly like a real product, but actually behind the scene, right, everything is done manually. So somebody coined it the term called Flintstoning. I mean, if those people who are probably aware, right, Flintstone is actually a cartoon show where it's actually centered what I call around a family living in the Stone Age, in the dinosaur era. Also, the car they have, right, they run using their legs. It looks like a car, but with wheels, everything, but actually they use leg to run. Okay, the car. There's no real engine there. So that's why some people call this Wizard of Oz experiment the Flintstoning. So basically, you use manual, right, human power to complete the task, to automate the task, but there's no real automation or real web processing, right, or application processing. It's only the what I call false front or call a fake what I call website. So in Zappos' case, he has a very what I call good idea, right? He won't know whether it will sell or not, but he just have this idea that he want to sell shoe online. Now, just like the one of Facebook product manager says, right? In any startup, right? In any startup, usually there is the idea will involve making 1 or 2 miracle what I call come true. So in this case for Zappos, right, is that would people willing to buy shoe online without even trying it on, right? So that was a major assumption. If this assumption is this miracle, right, where people were willing to just buy shoe online without even trying it, right, comes true, right, then his product idea will succeed, right? So how do you do it? He create a website where you can pick your shoes, right? With a catalog of shoes. And then, but behind it, there's nothing, right? There's no actual what you call inventory or what you call a shopping cart, whatever, processing, right? Basically, when somebody click on the website, right, he'll run to the nearest shop, the shoe shop that he make an arrangement with and an agreement with, right, to get the shoe and then deliver it to the customer. So everything is done manually behind the scene. So from there, he validate whether this idea of people selling shoe online, like, will it be viable or not? Yeah. Now, the next experiment is called a concierge MVP. Now, concierge MVP is a lot more manual than the, very close to the Wizard of Oz experiment, but it's even more manual. Basically, what you do is that you do everything manually. You just want to test out the idea with the people, right? Whether people will buy into the idea or not. Yeah. Also, in this example, right, Open Snow is a company that provides the weather forecast for mountains and ski resort. You may think, right, weather forecast is everywhere, right? It's free, right? But what this idea, what this Open Snow, what you call founder has is that the idea is to actually help skiers, right, to reduce or prevent, avoid, what you call so-called waste of money, right? In ruin ski, what you call trips, right? Because in skiing, right, it's very important in skiing is that the snow must be good, right? There must be snow in the mountains. And so he focused his weather forecast on specific, right, area called what I call the weather in the mountains, right, of the skiing resorts. Yeah. And then he go around asking, he visit a ski resort and ask people down there, right, are they interested in this kind of service? At first, he just say free, he just provide it free first, right? I will provide you via email, right, to tell you where are the snow resort, right, where are the ski resort, which one are they having good snow, right, good snow coverage, such that you have a very good skiing experience or ski trip. And after that, then he start to ask customers, are they willing to pay, right? So then from that, if there are people who are willing to pay for that service, right, then he validate his idea. Then he go ahead and implement the whole application, the whole product, right, or whole service. Yeah. So this is what we call concierge MVP. Yeah. Now I'm going to move forward again to the next example, where it's called A/B testing. Now the idea of A/B testing, right, is about testing which idea works better. Yeah. Now the key thing is that you're not trying to say which one work, which one don't work. It's just which one work better. You'll never have a what you call a result where 100% what you call 100% goes to the what you call version A and 0% go to version B, right? You're going to have a split. That's why something is called split testing. But the idea is to find out which one works better. Yeah. So I have this example here. Basically, if you imagine you're selling house, selling homes, right? And you blast to your customer base, potential customer market base, right? With an email, right? How should you promote your product, your house, right? Or your homes? Should you emphasize the yield, like the investment return, or should you emphasize the features in the house, right? Amenities and things like that. Right? So which one works better? You won't know, right? Also, what you do is you test it out in the real world, right? You blast out maybe 5,000 email using the version A and 5,000 email using version B. And then you see after that, you test out, you measure, right, the returns. How many people click on that email? Okay, then you can tell which one works better. Now, you'll never get 100% go for A or 100% go for B and then 0% go for B and A, right? No? The idea is to find out which one works better. Okay. Now, maybe a good time for me to try a little experiment. Maybe you all may have maybe a bit of what you call having a kind of cold turkey, have not for having not touched your mobile phone, right? Can you all try to go into this URL, www.pollev.com/ISSTLC. Okay, I'm going to activate a little poll, and then you choose for me, right? Which one do you think works better, A or B? Which one have a better result? And one of them, right, actually scored 33% better than the other. So I'm going to activate that, what you call, give me a minute. I'm going to activate that poll, and then you tell me, okay, you should, if have you got into the, what you call a URL? Are you able to get to the URL? Everybody have? Okay. So can you try to pick, just tap on A or B? Okay. Just tap. I can see 80, 80, 90. Okay, 102. Okay, just tap which one do you think score better? 33% better. Okay, there are still people tapping on it. $270. Wow, you are really working very hard, exercising your fingers. Okay, 344, 360. Okay, 420. There are still people tapping in. Huh? Okay, in the interest of time, right, let me just what I call maybe share with you, right? What is the responses? Huh? Can you see the responses? Wow. I sorry, I couldn't count with that. You see the response on the mobile? You should be able to see it, right? Let me check my mobile phone. Okay. Will you be able to see the result? No. Let me maybe try to see it using this. I'm going to share with you the what I call the poll everywhere, like what you would see. Okay, now you see the result. So you can see, there are more who tap on A, right? There are more who tap on A. How come they keep coming in? How many people are there? I mean, some people may tap in more times, right? Choose both sides, both A and B. Okay, you can see roughly there are more people choose A and B, A rather than B, right? So let me get back to the slides. Okay, give me a minute. So remember, the idea of A/B testing is to test out which one score better. Yeah. So the result was that B score better. Now you may wonder, like, how come just now when I see the poll, right? Actually, A seems to score better, right? Okay, then I realized that whenever I do this poll in Singapore, right, it's always the reverse. You know why? Because Singapore, right, when it comes to homes, right, it's an investment. Now, this result that was shown here, right, was actually an exercise that was done by a company, right? What I call in the States. So in the States, right, people don't treat homes as investment. They treat homes for something to stay in. So that's why people choose for features. But in Singapore, if this is very, very much a reverse. Again, it's go for emphasize the point, right? You never know, right, how your customer react, how your customer behave, until you see it in your eyes, right? With your eyes, the real thing. So that's what A/B testing is trying to do. Basically, it so-called put out two versions and then see which one score better. And of course, there's always tools behind it. I mean, there are optimizer tools like Google Analytics, all this to help you decide how many clicks are there, which one actually have more clicks. Yeah. Now, another way of another example of A/B testing is this example called the what you call a call to action button. Again, this is actually was made popular, right? Very popular. What you call example back in 2008 when the U.S. Presidential election was being what you call conducted, and Obama's campaign team, right, decided to what you call put up a campaign website, and they need a lot of campaign donation, and campaign volunteers, right? So they try out different call to action button. People who sign up to be a volunteer, people who donate or whatever, right? So there are these 4 call to action, call to action button. Join us now, learn more, sign up now, sign up, right? So guess which one score better, right? One of them, right, actually has 40%. Imagine 40% more sign up than the other. That's a huge difference, yeah. In the interest of time, I'm going to use the poll everywhere. I've just moved on because I have the other poll as well, but let's not go to that again. I'll just share with you. Anyone want to shout out what do you think? Which one is the best call to action button? Anyone? Okay. So in the end, right, if you ever go to any commercial website, right, you realize that very often you see this word called learn more. Where they come from? in 2008 when this what I call so-called campaign, right, website that was put up, right, they actually found out that the learn more, right, the call to action learn more is the most successful way to engage your customer. Okay, huh? Especially for campaign, website, donation, whatever, right, or even subscription, for example. Yeah. So that's why you see today, you go to an airline website, you go to a hotel website, you go to a telco website. Whenever they have new product, right, they ask you, say, learn more, learn more, learn more. Where did it come from? How come nobody you sign up now, or things like that, or join us? Because this was found to be very successful. Okay. So that's A/B testing. Yeah. Now, what about simulation? Yeah. Simulation is basically a way to simulate what I call without building the real thing to try to simulate the product and see how the product operate in the real world. It's a very good way to find out about the whole ecosystem of the stakeholder that are going to operate within your product, right? The whole ecosystem, right? So guys, one good example here is this driverless car, right? In 2017, Ford teamed up with Virginia Tech, it's a university in US, to conduct an experiment. So basically, I'm going to share you this little video. You let me know whether it plays or not.
Residents of Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia may have encountered an unusual scenario last month when an experiment relating to driverless car technology played out around them on the streets. The experiment, initiated by Ford Motor Company and Virginia Tech's Transportation Institute, intended to capture the reactions of pedestrians, cars, and bicyclists to driverless cars. A Ford Transit Connect was outfitted with 360-degree cameras, a light bar that indicates the intentions of the driverless car, and something else, an actual driver. That's right, with autonomous vehicle technology still in the testing stage, Ford used a real human driver for this effort, but outfitted him with a suit that looked just like a vehicle seat. Without looking closely through the window downwards to see his hands at the bottom of the steering wheel, people would have no way of knowing that it was an actual person at the helm. The results were interesting, though, not particularly surprising. Driverless technology is still a novelty, so many responded with looks of shock, with some even taking pictures. They wanted a little selfie with the driverless car. Hey, there's nobody in there! Got it. But what the study did yield was a need for these vehicles to provide clear indications of what their intentions would be. The test car's light bar used signals to indicate whether it planned to yield or accelerate, and one that indicated it was driving autonomously. Researchers feel that a language like this could replace the unspoken rules of the road that have long existed between drivers and pedestrians and effectively keep people safe. I'm David Manti. This is IEN Now.
I'm going to lunch today, and I'm pretty sure that we found one of the.
Okay, yeah. So the question was, what are they trying to validate, right? Also, beyond just the usage of the product, they are actually trying to validate, right? How do people around the car, right, behave? How do you communicate with the pedestrians, the cyclists, right, who may be crossing the road, right, while the driverless car is moving towards it? How do you tell the cyclist or the pedestrian that I'm going to slow down, or I'm not giving way? You better keep to the side of the pavement, right? And I'm going to have the right of way. How do you communicate, right? In today's with a driver, right, you normally can have some kind of eye contact, right, or come out a sense of so-called whether is it some kind of visual sense, right, or how the driver is it looking at you, or is it already seen you or not? But if it's a driverless car, right, it's just a machine, right? So it's like a computer on wheels, right? Yeah. So how do you communicate with the people around the place of where the driverless car is moving, right? So that's why they conducted this experiment. Yeah. So it's a way called is using simulation, and they're using not the real product but just a simulated product, right? You notice that they're using a real driver with a dressed in a seat, right, in the driver's seat. Okay. Now, some tips on experimenting technique, which one to use. Now, the Wizard of Oz experiment basically is quite well suited, right, for purpose of, for example, right, if you want to learn about the people's honest opinion of an idea or product. Right? Very often when you conduct interviews, sometimes people may not, right, may not what you call tell you the real truth, right? By putting out a fake door experiment, right, a website, and you see people actually click on it or don't click on it, right? You can establish a very clear understanding of what is the real feelings of the people. Are they willing to actually use that product, right? Now, conceal MVP is basically for product in an exploratory mode, even more exploratory. Yeah. So you actually have not sure whether what you call a lot of uncertainty, very extreme uncertainty, very exploratory in nature. So you want to know, right, whether would people buy into this idea, without having to invest in any what you call work or any effort, even to create a website. You need some time and money, right? And that's where we got a conceal MVP can actually help you do that. Yeah. Now, A/B testing, or what we call split testing, right, is basically have a lot of usage in terms of finding out certain product features, or whether is it the call to action button, certain design, right, or maybe the content layout, right, or which one score better, right? It will be very useful. Yesterday, Sean talked about UX, right? So very often, which layout or which what you call web landing page, right, is the best, right? Or is better, right? Again, you can use the A/B testing to help you design the landing page. Yeah. You may have two versions, but you never know which one score better until you put it out into the real world and get your real customer to actually test it out, right? So this is very useful when it comes to what I call this kind of what I call testing, right? Also conversion rate, right? From opening up the email to actually clicking and buying something, right? Then stimulation will be more to look at the whole environment, right? All the stakeholder that may be involved in that product, the whole ecosystem, right? The operating environment. So it's where simulation come in, just like the driverless car experiment that was done shown just now in the video. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing we want to what I call, of course, answer, right, is then what do you measure, right? So for certain websites, right, these are some of the typical metrics, right, you may design for your website. For e-commerce website, you may what I call measure metrics like completed purchase. That means the conversion rate from the funnel, the sales funnel, from people opening up that going to a website, clicking on the catalog, and to actually make a purchase, right? And then maybe also the speed, right? And it basically will be about UX, right? Whether the usability is very high or not, or usability is not so good, right? The speed of completing the steps in the checkout funnel, and how do you add product to the cart? How people add product to the cart? Is it very fast, very user friendly, things like that, right? And number of page views, for example, as well. Yeah. For media content, will be more page views, click on the article, read, and maybe the what you call the impressions, right? Or if you're in digital marketing, you talk about impression, means the shares, the like, the comments, or maybe all the emojis, yeah. So this will then call, in the marketing world, they call it impressions, right? How many impressions you manage to garner, right? People share the document, share the article, share the URL, things like that. And what about the bounce rate as well? People click on it, but then decided to so-called what call abandon the web page, right? Something like that. Yeah. And then lead generation will be also very useful, right? When it comes to lead generation, what you measure would be form completions, right? How many people actually submit the form, right? Things like that. Yeah. So this gives you some idea to how to design measure. But basically, is up to you to come out with what would be useful and relevant, right, to the thing that you want to test, right? You need to have a measure and a kind of metrics to help you measure the outcome. Yeah. Okay, that sort of sums up my presentation. We are more or less on time. Yeah. Just to take away, right? I just want to share with you some of, in the context of the Shopee challenge, right? You're going to talk about selling things, right? So imagine, right? This is a very interesting case, right? Imagine you have to actually using digital technology, right, to what I call so-called decide, right, how shopper choose the hair color, right? So this is a very good example. And for this, imagine, right, if you go into the shop, here is actually a Google map, Google apps, right, where they can actually show, right, where your location is, and then be able to show what are the buildings in that location, and you decide to navigate. So think of it like, imagine if you're in the shop floor, how do you navigate your shop floor? You can actually use this technology to showcase, right, your different department, even without having to go into the shop, right? You know what are the department, what are the layout, what are the catalog and things, physical catalog out there, right? And be able to zoom in, things like that. Yeah. And of course, the last one is actually a sales.
Hello, I'm Siren, and I'm a digital human. I was created by an international team of artists and engineers who wanted to challenge our ideas of what a synthetic human could be. I've got state-of-the-art real-time graphics and an unprecedented level of detail in my...
So imagine this is like your shop assistant, be able to help you without even having to go to a shop. You still have physical contact, right? You still have the human touch by having a digital assistant like that. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have, and thank you for your attention. We're gonna then, I think, hand over to the floor for everyone to maybe have a short Q&A session. We still have about 25 minutes more. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna stop share and then wait for answers and questions. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can actually go for a short bio break. Yeah, for 5 minutes and then come back. Then we'll start the Q&A. All right. So there are some questions here posted. So we will encourage you to post the questions. So go for a quick short 5 minutes bio break and then we'll come back for the Q&A. Thank you. Okay, let's start the Q&A. I think there are some questions that has been posted here. Yeah. Okay, let me start off with regard to one of the question. Can I have an example of a typical roadmap, right? So basically, I pull out an example here. Let me try to share screen. Let me see. Okay, so what you see here on the screen is a typical product roadmap. Right? Typically, you're looking at year 1, year 2, and so on. So that's one possibility of actually kind of having a year on year in terms of your product releases of feature set. I think what is important is to know that most companies prefer to have different type of roadmap for internal stakeholders versus external stakeholders. All right. So one of the key concerns is with regard to external stakeholders. There are actually drawbacks if you were to put too much sensitive information, particularly relating to trade secrets and something that you don't want to release out to the market where your competition have access to. All right, so most organizations will be more careful about what they release out in the market. Most of the time they release out is to give assurance to their customer pool, with regard to ongoing support and adoption of new technology over time, right? For most software product roadmap, I would add that sometimes the product roadmap may be shorter timeline, like over the next 6 to 12 months, expecting what kind of releases, for example, beta release versus the actual product live release. So they might have different milestones to guide that release plan. Okay, so it's just to show you briefly. There's also, I think, some question regarding A/B testing. I don't know whether Liong Choon want to take any.
I'm trying to look at it now. Which one is that? I'm going to scroll through. Where is it? Oh, is there? If there is any, if there is no difference, right, percentage wise between two alternatives after you do the A/B testing, how do you decide further? Well, if there's no difference, right? Then you just have to just pick one, right? Or maybe your what you call then you just need to just evolve accordingly. Just pick either one and then decide the next test you want to do, right? Or how to improve it further. Yeah, I think there's no there's no hard and fast rule. As I say, basically in A/B testing, there's no such thing as you're going to have one version that score 100% and it's going to score 0%, right? So it can be only 8%, doesn't matter, right? But you would typically be able to be able to discern which one score better, and you try to analyze why is it better, so that you can help you influence your design, right? Your next feature, next product, how should you design it better? Yeah. Okay, I hope that answers your questions.
Another question is relating to the trifecta that I mentioned, right? Regarding desirability versus feasibility and viability. So this question says, should desirability, in this case, customer experience, be prioritized over business viability? What should we do with the features that can improve user experience but create little business value? All right, so there's no hard and fast rule. My take is that a product manager needs to balance the three parts of it, right? With regard to the desirability, feasibility, and viability. If you think about it, in the recent pandemic, a lot of business are actually impacted and remodeling themselves, right? So you start to see customer now has different priority, right? In terms of their experience. So for business to survive now, it makes more sense for them to then focus on the user need, because if the user need is not going to be met, it will have a direct impact on their bottom line, the revenue, right? So you talk about Grab, for example, right? Recently they launched due to pandemic this Grab Protect assurance for all the consumers who wants to do Grab hailing, for example, that they assure them, for example, that there will be proper hygiene procedures, right? So there's hand sanitizer. They will assure that the driver will be wearing a mask, and then they will talk about how the whole experience is going to be a contactless delivery end to end. So I think it's important to consider that factor, right? So that customer experience now has changed, right? The new norm, people are now very reluctant to go for luxury, right? Survival is now basic, right? So a lot of times you need to then pivot your business model accordingly, because that will have a direct impact. If you're not able to satisfy that desirability, right? Providing the assurance, for example, right? More and more customers are preferring going online. If you do not provide online channel, your bottom line will be impacted. More people are concerned about having contact with paper money, for example. Although the other day I was just having dinner yesterday, I still use cash lah. But as I use, I also concerned the exchange back, will that be contaminated, right? But I'm okay. But there will be customers who prefer so-called cashless payment. If your business doesn't provide that, it will also impact them. So that desirability aspect is still important. Okay. Let me just scroll through. There was a question at the bottom. Is Wizard of Oz similar to prototyping for user testing? This brought to mind this concept of prototyping. Right? What's the difference between prototyping and prototyping? So it's a prototype means you pretend. So Wizard of Oz means that actually you don't have the real product. You're actually pretending, right? So back in 1984, IBM kind of tested this. They call it the listening typewriter, right? So they have a control experiment where somebody, the end user, sat in a corner facing a computer, and then using speech. There's actually someone behind the scene who actually type, and then display that. So there's a speech converter, so-called. At that time, they don't really have the technology like today, like Siri is able to do some of these more advanced way of speech recognition and so on. So the thing is that I think when you talk about prototyping using Wizard of Oz, essentially it's just to have something that is not a working prototype yet. So it's pretend, right? And the goal is actually to understand what is the pain point you're trying to solve, right? And that testing gives you that feedback. So I would say, in a way, that Wizard of Oz does provide that kind of so-called prototype type of testing.
Okay, maybe I just pick up a few questions. Actually, is on Shopee. I don't think we are in a position to answer that. I think, for example, given that this hackathon, where do we get much access to the Shopee data? You have to probably check back with the Shopee team. I think they're going to give you some kind of a problem statement, right? And they'll provide you some so-called supporting data, I guess. So you have to check back with the Shopee team. Okay. The other question is a Shopee challenge. How far of a roadmap do they want us to plan? Okay, again, this is depending on your idea, I guess. Again, the Shopee will give you some guidance, I guess. We are not actually in a position to so-called provide that kind of criteria or conditions. Yeah. How do you decide the product roadmap? Do we always start with a product vision? Yeah. Typically, a roadmap, we must know where you want to go first, right? Also, as Boon mentioned, it has to have a vision, a North Star, right? Well, from that North Star, then you plan how am I going to achieve that vision? Right? Then you set out the roadmap. Yeah. And of course, also before even you have the roadmap, actually in terms of roadmap, you also have your product strategy, right? So your product strategy will be more in terms of your market strategy, or what kind of customer segment you want, market segment you want to target, right? What kind of persona, things like that, right? Then you can actually, all these are the strategy and the pricing strategy. How are you going to price yourself, position your brand or your product, right, against all the other competitor? Yeah. So based on all this, right, then you will be able to then decide what would be in the roadmap. Should it be good user experience, usability, or feature, right? Or what I call the number of feature, or what advanced feature, things like that. Yeah. Okay. Boon, you want to take the next one? What is the
Okay,
difference
what is
between
the
product
difference?
manager and UX designer?
Okay, so I think we didn't cover a lot on the UX designer today. Although yesterday my colleague Sean Chu would have actually covered. My take is a product manager basically drives the project direction, right, in terms of strategy, in terms of understanding the pain point. And the idea here is you have actually a product team typically, right, that actually delivers the end-to-end product. And usually that team will should include, right, at least the UX designer role, right, to consider how to actually identify. Of course, one is identify the user, right, the using persona, right. And then second is looking at the customer experience from a adoption, right? So from a usage rather. So a lot of techniques you can see out there, for example, users customer journey mapping as one approach, right? Most UX designer will also make use of digital tools like mockups, wireframes like Balsamic to kind of create low fidelity type of structured web client type of workflow to work with customer to get feedback, right? So that's the main role of a UX designer. But the product manager still drives the overall direction in terms of prioritizing, right? For example, I talked about the backlog earlier on, used by a lot of organizations in agile delivery. That backlog is essentially a list of that user requirements, right? The product requirements.
Okay, let me move on to the next one. If we talk about Airbnb, Grab example, solving all the pain point of user. How do you know if the problem are worth solving, right? So again, the thing is that that's where the lean startup becomes very useful. You talk about having a fast cycle feedback, right? Instead of producing everything and all the feature, you have the complete product, right? You test out one simple product feature first. And in the Airbnb case, they just have one simple what I call idea, right? Is people willing to stay in a stranger's home? You want to validate that. So we basically offer it as a little advertisement, right? A simple advertisement in they try to go to a place. I think there was a major convention going on, and you know that there will be hotel shortage, and there'll be many people who are going to attend the convention. So they go there and try to sell their idea. And they found 2 people actually reply to their email, right? To be willing to so-called book their Airbnb. Oh, that's called Airbnb, Airbnb. So that's how they validate the idea. So you won't know, right? So the whole idea of experimentation comes in, right? You need to do experiment, right? MVP, minimal viable product, and come up with a minimal set of feature that can validate what you're trying to call confirm, right? In terms of the assumption, right? Or this miracle that your idea, right? Of people willing to buy shoe without even trying it, people willing to stay in a stranger's home, or people willing to rent out their place, right, to a stranger, things like that. Yeah. Okay. Next question. I think Winky, you want to cover this? In your opinion, should a product manager be focusing more on?
Sorry. I'm looking at the last one. What are the various persona? How to determine persona? So yesterday's talk covers the user experience we have done it, but generally persona is a fictitious kind of archetype of the user that uses your product, right? So most of the time you will identify at least 2 or 3 key persona. So for example, if I am trying to launch a staff portal, right? Like recently, a couple years back, I kind of managed an internal project, right, to so-called revamp our staff portal. So some of the key persona using the staff portal will include the various roles played by the different staff, right? You have lecturers, people like me and Choon. You have course administrators, all right? You have Marcom people like Joyce, right? From the marketing and communication side. You have the management, you have the HR people. So these are key personas, right? That will kind of tell you how they will use your product, right? So then how do you determine the persona? Basically is they're actually you want to focus on what are their so-called behavior and what are the goals and the benefits of using your product. So these are key things, right? And another one, of course, you got to consider the demographics, right, for your product. So demographics can contain things like, for example, the gender, the age, and so on of your user. That will potentially shape the way you design your product as well to be used by different persona. Okay. And then some question, I think if you are keen to learn more, I think you can check the Shopee website for the additional talks over the next few days. There's some more talks that cover some of this user experience as well. And then the business model, we don't really cover that today, but from a business model, there are many ways nowadays. You can see there are actually a lot of startups uses the lean canvas, which is actually a business model canvas to look at how to identify who are your target customers, who are your delivery channels, what is your revenue, and so on and so forth. Right. So due to time limit, we can't cover the details, and it's not the purpose of today's talk as well. Okay.
Okay, but for those who interested in business model, right? I think one of the most what I call what I call established practice, right, is this business model canvas, and from there, there's also a sub what I call as Punki mentioned, the lean canvas. So it's actually come out from the same branch basically this idea called a business model canvas. There's actually 5 attributes, right? Your customer, your what I call your resources and things like that, and your unique value, what I call value proposal, right? So these 9 attributes, right, forms the basic answer questions, right, that product, right, manager needs to answer or address, right, in order to address the idea of whether this business model, right, will be able to will be viable or not, and then to test it out. Yeah, I added in a resource called a pitstop.com. It has a lot of, it's actually for a lot of startup. So there's a lot of actually startup idea using the pitstop.com to actually, I think they use it. They have a lot of templates there. You can actually explore that. And they also use it, I think, to also garner maybe an investor who may want to actually support certain idea. Yeah.
I think there are a couple of questions on Shopee. I'm not sure we are in position to answer those. Right. One of it is, should we apply product roadmap for Shopee challenge and why? It really depends on, because we don't have, we are not privy on the details, to advise you on that.
Okay. The question on persona, likes and lifestyle, of course, normally there have to be user research before you actually able to address as a persona. You need to actually conduct interview, field research. You actually have already got the idea of where your target market is, right? Whether is it in the range of maybe what age group or what I call a type of so-called lifestyle. You may actually interview them to find out a bit more, right, to actually tighten your persona. Yeah. So there's usually also this concept called buyer persona, right? As you see, persona itself is a one subject by itself.
Okay, we are on top of the hour now. Right, so I am afraid we run out of time to answer all the questions. Yeah. So maybe at this juncture, I will pass the time back to Charmaine.
Joyce, you can take over.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your sharing this evening. Yes. Okay. So I realized that there's a lot of questions regarding the competition specifically. So in order to not provide the wrong information, you can reach out to us at techsg@shopee.com, and we'll be providing you with more detailed answers if there are. Because this competition guide actually answers like most of the things that we are requiring from the participants. And if there's anything else, you can reach out to us there. Yeah, and also we hope that you have a good time and continue to sign up for the remaining of the training workshops up to 16 December. Thank you so much, Boon and Liong Choon. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting
sparing our
us.
evening here,
No
sharing
problem.
your thoughts and your experience. So yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone.
We can actually
Have a
end
good
this.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.